everybody. Welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
My name is Joe.
Every Monday, Joe and I get together to discuss narcissism from both a male and a female perspective. As many of you know, we're in a long-distance relationship, so we usually communicate through text, email, and phone. Once a week, though, we hit the record button and include you in on our conversation so that all of us can share our experience, strength, and hope together. I release videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on all types of topics related to narcissism. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. It's a free way you can help us out. And definitely don't forget to leave a comment because we want to hear what you have to say. So Joe, speaking of hearing what you have to say, what do you think we should do for our topic tonight?
I really wanted to do, you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, and it's going to take, break out the shovels, we're going to do some digging. There's a phrase, it's kind of like a pop psychology kind of thing. It's called dark night of the soul. And I remember reading some articles and people sharing their experience and how that related to them. And I had asked you a couple of weeks ago if you could do a little digging. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm hoping that you did, just for the sake of just discussing it and talking a little bit about it, maybe?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. And it's dark night of the soul. You're right. It is like a pop psychology thing. It's not like a diagnosis. Oh, you have dark night of the soul. But it is equated to pain, a painful trauma, a painful experience that people go through. It actually comes from a poem that was written in either the 16 or 1700s, and it was written by a man named St. John of the Cross. He actually had the poem untitled. Somebody else gave it that title, but it's synonymous today with somebody going through something substantial. So it's a miserable process. It's a stage in personal development when a person undergoes a difficult and significant transition to a deeper perception of life and their place in it. So you end up understanding yourself, but in order to do that, basically you're walking through hell to get there. So does that help?
Yeah, I could definitely relate it to narcissism and narcissistic abuse. Dealing with these creatures is like an inverted nature. Good is bad and bad is good. There's a reverse polarity. You don't know what's real and what's not. But remember that question that I asked you a month ago or so? And I said, do you believe that any healthy human being that was holistically, healthy and well-grounded, level-headed, could be in any kind of relationship with a narcissist for any substantial period of time? Remember I asked that?
Oh, absolutely. And the answer, of course, how could it be anything else? Hell no, there's no way.
Yeah, the resounding answer, I think, for at least the majority of it is no. So what that seems to imply is that I wasn't healthy myself. And to get right into it, the dark night of the soul, you're dealing with this evil thing, whatever you want to call them. You're trying to get over the hurt. There's acceptance of many things. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's false. And the bottom line is that, when I went no contact and had been no contact for about a year, I was still, irritable, discontent, not happy at all. And there were some tough questions I had to ask myself, Sharon. The first one, obviously, was if the narcissist was the problem, she's been out of my life for a year, then why do I feel this way? And there's a saying, but it's not emphasized enough. It's just like, I used to be in a lot of sports, and they used to say, no pain, no gain. There's some truth to that. I think that pain is a catalyst for change. And I don't think it's necessary all the time, but it was in my purpose and in my role here. I had a role to play in this relationship, if you want to call it that. I had to ask myself, why the hell did I stay in a marriage for 20 years? The devalue process started the first month. We didn't have kids the first month. There's some tough questions I had to ask and some fears that I had to walk through. There's a misconception sometimes that narcissists or cluster Bs are the only people that had childhood trauma. You know how many empaths that I know that had abuse and trauma in their lives? Far greater than narcissists. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Well, I too had childhood trauma. Mine was a fear of abandonment and not being loved. There was a codependency attached to that. And here I am, Sharon. She's gone for a year. I'm asking myself these questions. I'm looking at my kids. I'm partially responsible for like the condition that they're in as well. I know this happened to you because we got into a little bit of that work with you. I mean, how was it for you? It was very painful.
Oh my goodness, it was horrible. It was terrible. When my relationship ended, it ended, particularly traumatically. I know some of you know this. Essentially, the last day I was with my ex, what caused me to end the relationship was he tried to get me arrested. He falsely accused me of domestic violence. He, like I said, tried to get me arrested. Child Protective Services was involved. That was horrible. So the first 2 months after the relationship ended, I was dealing with that. Then the real work began. I thought that was bad. I thought those 2 months were bad. But the reality is, like, you alluded to this, Joe. Pain can produce greatness. It really can. It's a catalyst for change. It's just, nobody wants to go through the pain. Everyone wants to avoid it. But once I started confronting, similarly to you, why the heck was I in a relationship with somebody for almost 20 years who had abused me physically, emotionally? I mean, he was a nightmare of a husband. So it wasn't like this was like a good guy and he had a bad day or so. He was horrible. The longer the marriage went on, the worse he became. I don't know if he just became more comfortable or I just was completely like became a doormat. It's horrible. It's a difficult thing to accept and confront about yourself. And like you, I have children as well. And the choices I made, the decisions I made affected them. And this by no means, so I'm not saying this for any of us, this doesn't take away from the abuse that happened. It really doesn't. But we're talking about a dark night of the soul. It's our soul we're talking about, getting through the pain within us that caused us to be in a relationship like this. So there's no taking away blame from the narcissist. There's no way. They did all that. But why did we stay confronting that? Because God, could you imagine, Joe? Like the worst case scenario would be going through this pain, going through this, and then ending up in another relationship with another narcissist. Can you imagine?
It happens. Like it happens often. You hear it. So here's the thing. Like, and I want to reiterate because you were talking to me yesterday about the rebirth of a baby and the pain it goes through. Like I had these repressed emotions inside of me. And I call it, it was in the dark, and not much good grows in the dark. Fungus and mold and narcissists for the most part, and bringing it to the light. I think the universe has a way that, in this class of life, whatever grade you're in, if you don't learn the lesson, you're bound to repeat it. So, like moss drawn to a flame, a codependent empath that has issues. I mean, we're just like, the narcissists are drawn to us. They're intraspecies predators, the majority of them. You're dealing with many different levels, and you're trying to sort out reality through this. Like, as you said, it's like, I can't change the narcissist. Okay, so what inside me can I change so that I don't ever allow myself to tolerate this ever again? And it hurts, Sharon. Sometimes my oldest he's in a tough spot. He's a 20-year-old. He's got in and out with his girlfriend. He's drinking, and it's hurtful to say, Joe, why the hell did you allow this to happen? Why did you stay in this relationship? Why did I ignore red flags? Like, I'm a grown man. I have choices. I can make choices. It hurts. Like, it's ego deflating. Like, I have this ideal about myself. I am by far no saint or martyr. But if I love somebody, if I love a person, I love them. And I believe that I was in love with, what I call my wife for 20 years, and I knew this person. I don't even associate people that lie, cheat, and steal. I mean, let alone all the other things that she did. So I had, like, that's why I say it's ego deflating. I had to let go of my ideals. I had to walk through this fear of abandonment. You call it radical honesty, and open-mindedness and willingness. The only way through it was through it. And I had to let go of this delusion that I loved this person, because if I didn't let go, I was going to continue to be dragged.
Yeah, absolutely. There comes a day, there's a time where there's a rude awakening. I used to watch soap operas when I was younger, and there'd be all these like crazy things happening, and it's entertaining to watch, but it's not entertaining when it's your life. And that's what happens to us when we're in these relationships. So many people, and I was included in this, absolutely. I would think to myself, if only he would change, if only he would keep his promises, if only, if only, if only. All along, the solution to my problem was not him changing, it was me changing. It was me becoming the person that I was always meant to be. I have a faith, so for me, it's who God wanted me to be. And until I became that person, my authentic self, I was going to suffer. I wasn't going to be doing the things that I needed to do. I probably would have ended up in another narcissistic relationship because that's all I knew. I grew up in a dysfunctional family. I got married to a dysfunctional man. That's my life. I want to do better. I want to improve. And in anything, you never want to go through the pain. I get that. I'm not particularly into going through pain either. But the end result is so worth it. And we can talk about this in a minute, but where I am today compared to where I was, it is night and day. But I had to confront things. And Joe, you actually helped me with that. You're the one who helped me reach where my worst fears were. And for me, I was afraid of abandonment. That was something I was afraid of. But instead of, and I wasn't conscious of it. It wasn't until during the recovery. But in reality, I stayed with somebody that I didn't love. I stayed with somebody that abused me and abused my kids. And I stayed because of my own fears. I mean, that you can bring it down to that.
Yeah. And that's the painful part. Like, so you're hurt by this thing that truly did abuse you. But in order to change, like, I had to keep the focus on myself. I mean, I didn't like the fact that I didn't know. Like, I'm saying that the narcissist, I learned on NPD, and they're selfish and self-centered. They're unconscious. Well, hell, I had these repressed feelings inside. I was making decisions based on like insecurity and fear of abandonment. I mean, how selfish is that? We did a video a few weeks back about, there's so many vast differences, but we did a video just to see like how the similarities are. Like, so narcissists aren't the only ones that had abandonment issues. Thank God we have personalities and we have love and empathy, but it sucks because you're brokenhearted. You've been done wrong. Then you got to look at your parts, and you try not to beat yourself up. And the pain is, they call it trauma for a reason. And Jesus, it's just horrible. But at the end, you're right. At the end of it, you come face to face with your true self. You come to realize and appreciate who you truly are underneath the skin, behind just a name, Joe. Like, how we're sentient beings. In my recovery from drugs and alcohol, and I relate narcissism like that, like the addiction part of it. They say part of it is like when you give up a bad habit, you want to replace it with something. So I didn't really give up the narcissistic relationship like God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. She just took down the whole framework of the family and everything after, it was just insane. But I replaced that with the relationship with my true self. I looked at the fear and the insecurities and all those things that were blocking me from the sunlight of God. And once I removed those, he just needed a little crack in my heart. And that crack, because my heart was broken, that little bit of light came in, and my perspective on everything changed. There's a new freedom and a new happiness that I've experienced. It is possible, but it takes time, and it takes a lot of, as you said, radical honesty with yourself. The reason why is because the only thing that you can change is yourself. And in my case, I was beyond human aid. In my recovery process, I needed God to guide me. I couldn't just do it on my own. But the journey is incredible. Looking back, it was a blessing in disguise. I think the universe was the whole purpose of the narcissist, and the pain was, if I didn't meet the narcissist, let's put it this way, like those feelings, those repressed feelings I had inside, I might have met maybe some kind of sociopath serial killer or something like that, because those are the issues and what drew them to me and what I drew to them. Focusing on them and just blaming them, you're just not like, is blame shifting, is projection, it's doing the same thing the narcissist does all the time. We could change, they can't. We have empathy, they don't. So I'm not trying to compare ourselves in that way, but like my pain was her face, and I had to keep that out and look at it like I had to look inside at my own pain. And it was just, I don't wish it upon anybody. If I had to do it over again, I really wouldn't say I could, but the only reason why I would is because I met you. But other than that, Sharon, the trauma and the pain everybody knows is just, I don't know what else to say about it. You were talking yesterday, I was struggling a little bit. Even today, I still have my days. Like, there was a quote by Carl Jung. He said, everyone's born unconscious, was most unfortunate is the majority of us die that way. And the reason why I told you that quote is, you were talking about this like awakening, this level of awareness, this evolution in the human spirit, a human being instead of a human doing. And you talked about the birth of a baby. And I want you to share that with us because I could relate, it was just really cool.
Yeah, look, when you think about a baby being born, right? You don't, you think this is this beautiful moment. Now, here's your baby. But if you think about what the baby goes through. Now, first of all, if I handed you a newborn infant, you would be so careful with this. You'd be treating this little baby like it's so fragile, and oh my goodness, I big soft pillows around it, and the baby, you have to be so gentle, and you do. I'm not suggesting that you're not gentle around a baby, but when you think about what this baby just went through to be born. So here's the baby, it's in the womb, it's warm, it's comfortable, it's fed, it has no problems, it's feeling great. Then imagine if this baby had a consciousness, so you could talk to it and say, all right, you're not going to be here anymore. Tomorrow, you're going to be out into the world. The baby would be terrified if you said, all right, you're going to be pushed through this tight hole, and there's going to be bright lights, and you might get hurt. You're going to be pushing and pulling, and needles are going to be jabbed into you afterwards, and you're going to be roughly cleaned up, and you get bright lights, and people are going to be slapping you, and you would be terrified. Nobody would want to go through that, just like we don't want to go through the pain after this abuse. The baby would be terrified, but it has to go through that process to be born. And there are studies that show that a baby who has, say, been born by a C-section tends to have lower APGAR scores. They don't thrive initially the way that a baby who is born vaginally do. There's something about that painful process. It hurts the baby to be born. Think about its head. It's molded, it's painful for the mother too. I think it's worse for the baby, because the thing is, when I gave birth to my kids, I had an epidural, I had drugs, so I wasn't feeling it. The baby feels it all. They're jammed through, they're out into the world, the bright lights. They're being swaddled and held, and needles are in them. This is what's happening to your baby right when it's born. But it's the beginning of their life. And this is how life starts. So it's the same with us. When we go through narcissistic abuse, in order to get where we need to be, in order to have our life, the life we're meant to have, just like that baby, we have to go through the pain. We can't avoid it. You can't stay pregnant forever. The baby has to come out. Just like if you are in a narcissistic relationship, God, do not stay in that relationship forever. You have to get out. And my life today, it's so much better. Now, granted, I met Joe, and that's a big part of it. But regardless of what would happen, you're out of a relationship with somebody who's abusing you. You can only go up from there. It's just having the courage not to be afraid to look at yourself. Why? So you're not blaming yourself, but you're looking at what led you there so that you can have your authentic life.
Yeah, the truth about it is, if I'm honest, Sharon, I don't always know what's best for me. And like, if I had a choice, I would have chose something much different, but I would have sold myself so short. Could you imagine, so I was making decisions a lot in my life with these repressed feelings of fear and not like was not feeling loved or worthy. I had low self-worth and low self-esteem. Could you imagine these bumbling morons like roaming around this earth, not a clue to what they're doing to other people, no empathy, no insight. Like the chances of them changing are, it's even said they can't. At best, they could kind of get maybe a reprieve or learn how to manage it, but to truly change into an empath, that's like asking a pickle, to become a cucumber again.
Oh, I don't think. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that ain't happening. Like once the pickle, always the pickle. But for those still suffering, just keep in mind that the hottest fires forge the strongest blades. And Sharon created this channel, and I became a part of it because iron sharpens iron. I couldn't get much feedback from friends. Not many people have gone through this. Thousands have when I found it on YouTube. But having a friend or a companion, somebody that has gone through it really, truly helps. That's why Sharon created this channel. That's why I came on board. A couple of days ago, I was struggling, you guys. I've been in no contact for about a year and a half and have been doing the steps of my recovery. And I've gone through that dark night of the soul. But Sharon had helped me out because I was struggling a little bit. I have CPTSD. It's real. I come to accept that. And she read to me, I think it was 2 Corinthians chapter 9. And it just kind of reiterated the hope, because it's not false hope, it's real. It says, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. And I just wanted to say thank you, Sharon, for reading that for me.
Oh, you're welcome. That's how it is. It's unfortunate. If I could change things, I wouldn't have pain be the catalyst for change. But that's the way it is. And acceptance, that's part of the dark night of the soul, is an acceptance of how things are, how things should be. And it's painful, but everybody can get through it. So Joe, because of time, I was going to actually surprise you at the end and read the poem, Dark Night of the Soul. So I do have it here with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it underneath the video for anybody that would like to read it. It's a beautiful poem. So I'll have that there for you all. And before I end, I just want to say, I said at the beginning, like I had said, you guys are included in this. I want you to be a part of the conversation when Joe and I have, our Monday night talks. So tell us, where are you in recovery? Have you experienced your own dark night of the soul? We want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to hit that like button, and definitely don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And Joe, what is up for next week? What's our topic?
I'm teeter-tottering. Just when you're talking about dark night of the soul, I was thinking about, now this one I think is actually a psychological term, because I heard a couple psychologists say this, the dark triad.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're dealing with narcissist, anti-personality disorder, and like Machiavellian kind of personality. Or Sharon, what I was thinking, because I learned this from you, is that although pain is a catalyst for growth, and it could be a motivator, after we get through this, we become wise, and we learn discernment, that we could use love now for a motivator. And I've practiced it, you guys, for this last year. And I might want to talk about that, Sharon, and how your experience and being a power example of my life and other people, that I stopped using that pain to be the motivator to go to the gym and run 15 miles and do all this stuff, and learn that there's an easier, softer way now that I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, that sounds great, actually. I would love to talk about that. Yeah, Joe and I we've changed a lot, haven't we? As we've gotten through our recovery, it's good. Things are better, everybody, and we want that for all of you. So if you have a preference for what you'd like us to talk about, please tell us in the comments, because we really would like to hear from you. Other than that, I will see you on Wednesday by myself, sadly, without Joe. And Joe, we'll see you back on Monday, right?
Yep, absolutely, God willing.
Well, I guess you have to, since it's the Sharon and Joe show, right? But all right. So good night, everybody. Have a great week.